This college athletics, particularly men's college athletics.
Italian romantic dinner, and she turned to me and went, "No, honey, let's stay home and watch Murray State." Most people don't watch it. They watch the big brand.
Before we ponder whether NIL will actually destroy college basketball itself, I want to let you guys know how this video is going to go. We're going to be spending most of this video talking about the Cinderella story, kind of reiterating some points from yesterday, but kind of what's following up. However, the question of whether it will actually destroy the sport itself going forward, I'm going to be giving you guys another story from the past towards the very end involving another sport, which might shed some light on whether it's possible to overcome the, let's just say, the globalization or the, how do I say, I would say I actually agree with Jason Whitlock's take on the globalization of college basketball, if you guys pick up on my drift. So, is it something akin to what Jason just said there? Is it something akin to globalism? Guys, this right here is a bit of a follow-up to the video that I did yesterday, which somehow or another YouTube the algorithm just chose to remove all the likes on for whatever reason. I have no idea why they did that. It will be linked in the description box, and of course it will also be in the end card of this video here, and I may even place in the comment section, which is probably where I should be placing videos at going forward. But I want to follow up on this topic of NIL, and yes, I am wearing a Duke hooded sweatshirt because I am a Duke fan, and I obviously understand that NIL kind of benefits bigger programs like mine, or the ones that I'm a fan of. However, I want to say this right before I go any further. Before Shire became the head coach, Duke was already going in a good direction anyways. I just want to go ahead and say that before we go any further. And yes, I do know that the general manager's situation was something that had already been prepared for due to NIL. However, the thing is this right here. In the previous video, we discussed whether it was that NIL was going to erase the Cinderella team. And of course, that right there will be coming up a little bit more over the course of this video because I'm obviously going to revisit it. I kind of sounded a little bit weird there. I apologize. But what Jason said in his segment yesterday about it potentially being a microcosm of what's actually going on in America, how it is that it's more akin to quote-unquote globalism and leftist elites taking over, that right there is for the most part what we're going to be exploring in this video here, so make sure you guys stick around. Now, before we fully dig into this, make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. If you guys are new to this channel, please consider subscribing. It's the best way to support this channel for free. Also, to go on top of that there, please hit the like button so that way this video right here will stand a better chance of going up the algorithm. And let us go ahead and get into this. So here's a small snippet from his podcast yesterday. By the way, the topic of Colin Cowherds also came up as well at a later portion of his segment, or as a later portion of yesterday's stuff, but I want to go through that as well. So go ahead and be prepared for that. It's a little over a minute and a half. I put two segments together, and of course there's another segment there that will be played a little bit later on, but let's go ahead and get it.
It's Building 7. Building, and I know, oh, there goes Whitlock, conspiracy theorists. Building 7 fell for blah, blah. No, Building 7 was a controlled demolition. And great things in America, the values, the traditions, the customs that made America great have been systematically destroyed by idiot leftists and globalists. And college basketball is another victim in the NCAA tournament, something that many of us for years have considered one of the greatest things in sports. Oh, the opening weekend of college athletics. Oh, it's of the NCAA tournament. It's the greatest thing ever. There's these upsets. There's always going to be this lovely Cinderella story. It's proof. And this is what is critical here. College basketball, the NCAA tournament, the big dance, used to hammer the point that in America, even if you don't start at the top, even if you don't have all the best resources, even if you're not financed like the other guy, even if you come from the ghetto or from some rural poor area, you can make it all the way to the top in America. That's what the big dance and the NCAA tournament used to represent.
Basically overcoming all odds, which is everything that this nation does in fact stand for.
Now, granted, the full episode will be in the description box. It's the episode that he had out 2 days ago. By the way, I forgot to say this, but this video right here probably the only video of the day. It just, I'll kind of give you guys an explanation towards the end of the video. Yeah. The thing is this right here. The points that Jason was making, and of course he would go on to talk about this a little bit more, was of course it was in reference to a Sports Illustrated article that discussed NIL just eventually pushing out all eventual Cinderellas. I talked about this before, and I gave you guys my thoughts on that. And of course, I'll give you guys some deeper thoughts on that as well, because we also have to talk about Major League Baseball potentially implementing a salary cap at a later date, which of course, that right there will probably be the video that comes out on Sunday. But still, though, the point is this here. He's got a point. He's got a point. It's almost like left-wing elites have taken over the product and they're focusing more on the ratings than they are anything else. Now, in my previous video, I did tell you guys that I felt that Reese Davis, who I'll probably revisit that take here shortly, I think had the correct take. You won't see as many Cinderella teams, but you will definitely see a Cinderella team from time to time. Or you may see a team that may be classified as a Cinderella team, but still at the same time, though, it's ruining the possibility of, let's just say, Snow White underdog, as they might would call it in the boxing world, potentially rising from the ashes and potentially knocking off a big-name school. I mean, the Sweet 16 is going on later on tonight. My team plays. Hopefully, we can get by Arizona, which of course we probably should. And of course, my team is expected to do very, very well in the NCAA tournament. But I think a lot of that's really not to do with NIL, but more to the fact that we kind of have a weak bracket. Yes, I will be the first one to admit it. However, NIL itself, when you actually look into it and you look at the contracts that they're actually putting out there with the guys themselves, the athletes, yeah, I'm not exactly liking what I'm seeing. It can be absolutely 100% corrupted. And as I had said in the previous video, which of course will be linked in the description box, I had stated in that video there that it was explained to me more along the lines of, when I first heard about this, was you're not really playing for the name on the back of the jersey. You're not even really playing for the institution. You're playing more for the donors than anything else. By the way, speaking of Duke, one particular famous alum, Jay Billis, is also very, very much in favor of NIL too. And I'm here to tell you guys right now that I think there's a better way of doing things that would be a little bit less corrupted. But when you start playing for the donors rather than for the sport itself or the institution or even for yourself, that right there is when it starts to become a problem. But there was more from that segment. Let me get to it.
The rest of us common people don't watch a lot of Missouri Valley basketball. I've never said to my wife, honey, let's go out, bottle of Chianti, little Italian romantic dinner. And she turned to me and went, no, honey, let's stay home and watch Murray State. Most people don't watch it. They watch the big brands. And eventually, all these upsets, they're ratings killers because you end up with McNeese State in the next game. So people say a lot of things. I love upsets. And people do predictable things. They don't watch the next game after an upset. So this is why, by the way, the movies that are flourishing in Hollywood, big stars, stay away from politics.
Does this idiot not know that Hollywood is in the middle of one of its worst downturns ever and that they are playing nothing but woke projects that were greenlit 2 or 3 years ago? My God, this guy is such a fucking moron. It's really quite sad when you actually boil it down.
Well, the first thing wrong with this take is that nobody believes that his wife even talks to him. We all know the real reason why she's married to him is because of the money. She'll be out in a couple of years. I mean, it's the same guy who said that it is the area that he lives in Los Angeles, there was no crime, and he also said that homelessness was not a problem, yet I'm pretty sure that there are hundreds of thousands of people, damn near millions, who will probably disagree with that take and think this guy's absolutely delusional. It was extremely out of touch. The ratings portion, what he was talking about, I'll get to that right there a little bit later on. I did discuss that in the previous video, but there's a segment from TJ Moe on the Jason Whitlock show last night that I think made 100% absolute sense, and it also kind of reaffirmed what I said in the previous video. But the stuff that he's not going to mention to you is he's not going to mention how it is that these contracts that these players sign are absolutely 100% predatory. Some of these contracts are just simply there to, as I said before, ensure that you don't play for the name on the back, ensure that you don't play for the institution that may be in the college, but it absolutely goes out of its way to ensure that you play for the donor. Nothing more, nothing less. The alumni, that right there is what the hell it's really and truly all about. There's also one more thing that I want to point out, and that's that part that he talked about with upset teams. He's 100% off on that one there too as well. You see, what happens is that when a team pulls off an upset, they typically tend to tune into the next game to see what happens to said team. They typically tend to cut it off when the team that upset the previous team finally gets eliminated. I remember back in 2022, there was that team out of New Jersey that we could tell was obviously a plant team because at the end of every game they'd have a BLM shirt on, and they got to the Elite Eight. They won the Sweet 16. Everybody was watching, but once Carolina beat them in the Elite Eight, that was it. A lot of the audience tuned out. But, of course, a lot of that audience came back the very, very next week to watch Duke versus Carolina in the Final Four, something we've never seen before. Hopefully someday we'll get another crack at that there. Obviously, me being the fan of the losing team, and obviously that right there being the last game that Coach K coached. Obviously, I'd love to see a rematch somewhere along the lines for the national championship or the Final Four, somewhere in the NCAA tournament to kind of get that one back. But, of course, that right there may be wishful thinking. I talked more about Cowherds' take in the previous video. I'm not going to talk so much about it right now. I will be more that I'll talk about here shortly. But for the most part, it was pretty daggone soulless take. Which, of course, is to be expected to come from somebody like him, as Steve Kim pointed out.
In college for another year, like a Zach Edey, and then the big brands can cherry pick mid-major teams that nobody watches on television and get better faster. Everybody thought the NIL going to help the little guy maybe. No, made the rich richer. Yes, America likes to watch Duke, Kentucky, Kansas, Michigan State, Arizona more than Drexel, Lipscomb, and Wofford. Who knew?
Here's what I find alarming, and I don't like the Walmarting of the tournament for both football and basketball. When you allow one conference to have 14 teams, you are automatically lowering the odds of any Cinderella, because at that point, that means a mid-major team gets edged out that might have finished third or fourth instead of, 14th. So once you make it basically a Power Four invitational, guys, there is no room for Cinderella. They're not even invited to the ball.
Now, that bit that he said right there about the ratings, that is somewhat questionable, and it does get brought up a little bit later on by TJ Moe, which we'll get to here in a second. But there's something about this take that I do, in fact, want to hash. What he's referring to is the SEC. See, the SEC had 14 teams this NCAA tournament. Duke, there weren't that many ACC teams. Clemson was in, Louisville was in. Right now, Duke's the only one left. Carolina got in through controversial means. Of course, if you had listened the day before the selection, they told you point blank that the blue blood always finds a way to get in. The blue blood basically holds the tiebreaker because, of course, it's for ratings. But the point is this right here. A lot of people are clamoring about the fact that there's 14 SEC teams in. Well, now there's 7 because obviously they eat each other in the tournament. We have to hear Greenberg talk about it all the time. It's one of the main reasons why it is that when anybody shows up to a certain tournament and they say, well, I'm going to take an ACC team this time around. I'm going to take a Big Ten team this time around. I'm going to take a Big East team this time. I'm going to take an SEC team. I normally choose the field. And no, I'm not so delusional that I believe my team is going to win every single year. I basically called that my team would lose in the Elite Eight, whoever they played against, because we would top out the Elite Eight because we weren't built for anything more beyond the Elite Eight. And guess what happened? We ended up losing to NC State, who, by the way, would then turn right back around and lose to Purdue the following week. But the Walmarting, in my opinion, is very, very interesting because this kind of goes back to what Jason was saying in his entire segment, which will be linked in the description box, that it feels like it's left-wing elites who are out of control or out of touch with mainstream society and out of touch with the college fan itself. And it's almost like what Steve Kim was saying. You're basically Walmarting the league at this moment in time. That right there is what the hell is really truly going on. And it's almost like it's pretty much a safe bet to bet on the SEC team to win the entire show, when more than likely there probably will be a Cinderella team regardless. Reese Davis somewhat touched on this. Let me replay some of the segment from the previous video for you guys.
I think that there is some truth to it, but I don't believe that it's killed it forever, because the guys who are having opportunities to move up have to be at the other level at some point, and you're going to have the Cinderella teams that have veteran guys, as we've had in the past, make runs. I mean, almost saw it with Colorado State last night. I think there will still be Cinderellas. I do think it will be maybe a bit more rare than it's been in the past. I
agree 100% with Reese. The Cinderellas will be few and far between. However, Cinderellas will still in fact exist. As a matter of fact, the Cinderella team this particular cycle appears to be Arkansas. And yes, I do believe that Arkansas will find a way to make somewhat of a deep run. I don't believe that they'll win the national championship, but John Calipari, he's basically proven to everybody that he was, in fact, a very good coach at one time and still is. I also believe that Tom Izzo has got a run in him as well. I don't think he'll go that far, but it's very, very possible that his Michigan State team could knock off a big team like, say, Auburn, the exact same way that Arkansas could knock off Florida. By the way, in that Florida game against UConn, I thought Florida was pretty daggone sloppy. I typically tend not to hedge my bets on sloppy-looking teams. I typically tend to go with technically sound teams because they are normally the ones that actually win. The Walmarting of the tournament itself, that right there is what I think many people are not actually talking about, how it is that we have 14 teams from a conference, and of course they tell us that a team from that conference is going to win, but yet when they play somebody outside that conference, they tend to not play so well. Just saying. And going back to what Reese was saying, the Cinderella obviously could still very, very much exist. The problem, the thing we're talking about, the real problem, is NIL itself and how it's actually handled. Like I said, another video down the road. But there is more from that segment from last night that I want to go over.
Cosell.
Wait, all time? Really? So this past weekend had better ratings across the board than the 80s and 90s when there was no streaming. You basically had the basic networks and cable and no streaming outlets. Okay, I'll take his word, but Whitlock, your former partner, said the most baffling thing he said since he started uttering that mantra, it's the party of joy. I mean, I like these guys. This is the party of joy. Again, is that the approved messaging from his ivory tower? Really? Again,
I agree with Steve Kim. I call bullshit. Let me tell you guys something really quick. If you watch college basketball nowadays, you're probably going to want to watch it on the tube. You're probably going to want to watch it through your cable box. You're probably going to want to watch it through your satellite. Regardless whether you have Dish or DirecTV or whatever, you're probably going to want to watch it through there. The other day, I called my stepdad up. He's a Carolina fan. I'm a Duke fan. Duke was playing. I thought he was watching the Duke game. Come to find out that he was 3 minutes ahead on his TV than I was mine. I was watching on streaming. By the way, the March Madness channel, people log into it, and you're only getting about half the screen or a portion of the screen. I think a lot of people clicked on that and tuned the hell out and said, you know what, I would just, I have to try out Paramount to get a free subscription, which, by the way, I have to unsubscribe from now because I don't feel like paying $12 a month or $13 a month. I highly doubt that the ratings are anywhere near as high as what they're saying, which also goes to a point that TJ Moe would make over the same exact conversation.
Everybody watched this past election. Democrats have abandoned the working class, and now the working class is abandoning Democrats. That is what this is. They're happy to watch the elites continue to be more elite and cherry pick the few little things that they have left. Colin Cowherds is no fan of Robin Hood. I mean, is it actually better for college sports? So let's just say they're not lying about the ratings. I tend to think they are, but let's say they're not lying about the ratings. Well, if you've got a traditional football school like Auburn, and I love Bruce Pearl, and they've certainly done better and become more of a basketball powerhouse since he's been there, but a traditional football school, is it better to have 30% of the Auburn fans watching, which is still infinitely more than 100% of Holy Cross watching? Is it better for basketball to have a tiny fraction of the Auburn fans watching? Because that's where the ratings come from. You get these bigger schools, and obviously you're tuning in to watch your school, but it's people who don't care that much. Hey, it's a football school anyway. Can't wait till football season in the Iron Bowl, but yeah, we'll watch Bruce Pearl in the meantime. That is what's happening instead of Holy Cross, who will live and die by the one shot they have as a 16 seed, as the last team to get into the tournament, the history of it. It was much better for basketball to give those people some hope. Your actual alma mater that you went to, not everybody goes to a state school, or in this case now, a Power 4 school where it seems mandated for you to matter at all. So I just think it's worse. Whether or not he's arguing about the ratings, I don't care about the ratings. I think they're a lie anyway. I care about what's actually good for the sport. And so this is an extension of them trying to argue NIL is good for the sport. See, look, everything's wonderful. Transfer portal.
This one I had to kind of edit down a little bit to try to make it a little bit shorter. It's still a relatively lengthy clip, but I think that TJ Moe explains it perfectly here, especially when you get to the topic of the ratings themselves and who's actually watching. Now, there is something I do disagree with him on, and I talked about this in the previous video, that the vast majority of college basketball fans are primarily just watching their team. He kind of mentioned that there with Holy Cross, and that is where you got the bulk of your ratings. Duke is playing Carolina. You're probably going to have 4.5 million Duke fans watching from home. You're probably going to have 4.5 million Carolina fans watching from home. You'll have some who actually record the game, come back and watch it the next day because they chose to DVR it or whatever. The fact of the matter is this right here. The bulk of the ratings doesn't really come from the casual fan. It actually comes from the fans of the actual team itself. The casual fan, for the most part, doesn't show up until the NCAA tournament itself, or they show up sometime in mid-February going into the NCAA tournament because, as you guys already know, once you get to March, it becomes March Madness. And before it becomes March Madness, you got the ACC tournament, you got the Big Ten tournament, you got the Big East, all that type of stuff there, SEC, whatever the hell you might want to call it. They got all those conferences right there. I mean, that right there is normally when March Madness actually starts. And, of course, you have selection day, and of course you have people ready to love it, like they did this past year over Carolina, getting in ahead of another team, a team from West Virginia, which of course Pat McAfee decided to bitch and billyache about, and of course it would lead to a lawsuit that's designed to go towards teams in the next few years. But it goes back to the point of, are they politicizing the game to the point to where it's almost like what happened to the Democratic Party, and will it eventually kill college basketball itself? I don't think it'll kill college basketball because I believe that a Cinderella story will always exist. And I'll give you guys another example of what I mean by this and how to actually overcome this to end the video in a second, that I meant to include in yesterday's video that I did not. However, it is going to definitely corrupt the game, and it's also going to make a lot of kids not want to actually put forth the effort, which of course is the biggest problem here. We got a lot of kids out there, and Whitlock mentioned this earlier. He used the example in that particular bit of Steph Curry, who went to Davidson College. I mean, you got a lot of kids out there who want to play college basketball, or who get to play college basketball, who look at this stuff and say, I can't get a contract, I can't get into the system because NIL has a monopolization on the overall talent itself. And that right there is the aspect of NIL outside the contracts that really truly bothers me. It becomes suddenly political. If you guys ever played baseball growing up, or if you guys ever played sports growing up, especially rec ball, chances are you heard the expression, it's politics, it's politics, it's politics, what's right for the program, rather than, let's say, the actual talent itself. What looks good on paper does not always reflect in how the game should be played, if you guys pick up what I'm saying. It's almost like DEI, which it took me a long time to get to. And I'm not saying that these guys who signed these contracts aren't good basketball players. Obviously they are. The point is this right here. Globalization of the game itself, it's starting to look like exactly what the hell is going on in college basketball. However, I do want to give you guys an example from another sport on how to actually overcome this and why it is that Cinderella teams will still find a way to be Cinderella teams and do Cinderella type shit. So let me go ahead and get to that there to close out this video. If you're an old hat like me, chances are you probably watched Major League Baseball in the 1990s. Chances are you watched it on TBS. Chances are you got familiar with the Braves. You got familiar with the Cubs, who were on WGN. Same thing with the White Sox. Of course, if you're a Yankee fan, you definitely remember the late 1990s because you won a World Series against us in 96 and 99. You won a World Series in 98. You won a World Series in 2000. And, of course, you got the World Series in 2001, and you lost to Arizona. Now, here's why I'm bringing up that last one. After that World Series was over with, many people pointed out at the time that the New York Yankees, for the most part, bought their talent. Now, the late 90s Yankees, to me, I think was actually done the right way. It was actually a blend of both homegrown and bought talent. For example, Bernie Williams came up through the system. Derek Jeter came up through their system. Of course, to go on top of that, Alfonso Soriano that year came up through their system. But, of course, they signed Tino Martinez, Scott Brocious. They also signed Paul O'Neill, who've been in the team for a very, very long time, since 1994. Excuse me, 1993, my bad. The point is this right here. They were a blend. However, when they lost the World Series to the Diamondbacks that year, George Steinbrenner went absolutely insane and bought up all the talent that he could. Signed Jason Giambi. Hell, it was even John Vanderwall of all fucking people who had a career year the previous year, but hey, he hit 30 home runs to put him on the team. They brought back David Wells. They spent a lot of money on talent that particular offseason, and people were a bit upset. However, the Oakland Athletics story, which, by the way, is a story on its own, which you guys can find on other videos on how it was that Billy Bean's story and how it was he lost Johnny Damon, Jason Isringhausen, and Jason Giambi. Several videos are up there. However, what that movie and what those other things do not point out is the fact that there was another team that bought a lot of talent that offseason. That team was the Boston Red Sox. Teams were buying talent like absolute crazy. And people thought that it was so absolutely insane that a few teams were monopolizing all the talent out there, all the talent in the free agent pool. People just started writing all kinds of columns. By the way, this particular topic will come up again in my video that I'm going to be doing on Major League Baseball, seeing how it is that the season officially starts today. And that topic was written by a guy named George Will. George Will is known to be some conservative, think brain guy, but of course conservatives have turned their back on him since he's basically become a communist. Absolutely insane. Sea change this guy. We probably should have seen this coming based upon the op-ed that he wrote. So he wrote this op-ed basically arguing that Major League Baseball owners should share their wealth and share their money across Major League Baseball so that way teams should get an equal opportunity. Yeah, we should have definitely seen that this guy was a full-blown, full-bird communist from the very damn start. But obviously that right there eluded us. But still, the point is this right here. As good as that may sound on paper, it's not correct, okay? If you want to sign a player, if you want to sign as many players as you want that rather to be your MO, go right ahead and do so. It creates great content later on when we argue why you won or why you did not win and how nefarious it may be. Still, at the same time, it's not illegal to do so. Could there be better regulations? Who the hell knows? But still, the point is this right here. You're allowed to sign whoever the hell you want. That right there is the truth about the situation. By the way, to all the people out there who think that I'm just some right-winger on social issues and a liberal on issues like the economy, because I always tend to find a way to call out crony capitalism, I'm here to tell you guys right now, I'm very, very much a true capitalist, definitely more moderate right when it comes to economical issues and foreign policy issues. Actually, you could shoot me very, very far right because I do believe in tax cuts. The point is this right here. I'm not in favor of crony capitalism, which is not exactly what Major League Baseball teams were doing at that time. The belief is that these teams would just supplant all the other little teams. Okay, well, let's look at that. 2002 World Series winner, who won? Anaheim Angels, mostly homegrown team. 2003, Florida Marlins, homegrown team. 2004 Red Sox, yeah, a lot of money got spent. 2005 White Sox, mostly homegrown team. 2006 St. Louis Cardinals, mostly homegrown team. They had some big name talent, but they were mostly homegrown. 2007 Red Sox, mostly bought team. 2008 Philadelphia Phillies, combination of both. 2009 New York Yankees, definitely more bought than homegrown. But 2010 San Francisco, mostly homegrown. 2011 Cardinals, mostly homegrown. 2012 San Francisco, mostly homegrown. The point that I'm trying to make is this right here. There's always a way to overcome the big boys on the block. It's actually quite daggone frequent, and I do believe you're going to see more determination to do so now that NIL is involved. But you guys tell me in the comment section. Now, guys, before I end the video very, very quickly, I'm going to be talking about a topic this week, Friday and Saturday, that's going to absolutely blow your mind why the hell I'm actually talking about it. I've got 5 topics to go through, but 3 of them are going to involve the women. I very, very rarely talk about that, but you guys know how I am. I'll touch a topic like that there, do 3 or 4 videos, and then not touch it again for a very, very long time. But something's been irking me as of late that I need to go ahead and just kind of get out there. Still, though, at the same time, though, please leave a like on the video. Please comment in the comment section. I'd love to hear what you guys have got to say. Please share the video, and please subscribe, and I'll see you guys later.